You're a wizard, Harry.
Oh, God.
What did we say about not doing British accents?
I don't think Hagrid's British, maybe, is he? Or is he Scottish? I don't know.
Okay, because
He's
your
half
Scottish
giant.
accents are so much better than your British accents.
You'll have to wait for a Scottish movie, and then I'll pull it out.
Sounds good. Well, Screenagers, welcome back. The Canon is here yet again, your favorite movie podcast, bringing you a watch list of the most essential movies ever made. My name is Raf. I will be hosting these proceedings for today, or at least I will be attempting to. We've got quite the crew today, a returning crew of some of our favorite Screen Age Wasteland contributors. I think we've had this exact crew on at least one past episode, I want to say, but I'm not totally sure. Either way, very excited to talk to these folks about this particular movie that we are going to be chatting about today. It is our second of two Harry Potter movies that are in the canon. Last week, you heard us talk about Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. This week, we are, of course, talking about the third installment in the series. We're talking Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. And joining me to do so, we've got back on the show, Ramona, Jacob, and Duke. How are you guys doing? Welcome back.
Fantastic.
Good.
Doing great.
Yeah.
So we've got a lot of Wizarding World things to get to. We don't have a lot of time for pleasantries. We just exchanged a few, but that's about it. We got to jump. We got to get right into business because there's a lot to talk about here. We got four opinionated folks with lots to talk about a great movie. So what do y'all say? I feel like we should just dive right in.
Yes. Let's do
Yeah.
that.
Okay, let's do it. So in diving right in, we spoke about this a little bit last week with Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. If you haven't listened already, we had Brian and Hannah Loomis from the What a Picture podcast join us. They are, Hannah is a big Potterhead, and her husband Brian is sort of Potterhead by through marriage. So we got their background about their sort of relationship to the books, the movies, and all of that. But now that we have a new crew here to discuss Prisoner of Azkaban, I think we should start in the same place to get an understanding of like where you guys were with Harry Potter and all of this stuff before coming to this movie specifically, because I feel like a lot of that background and contextualizing will, help us understand sort of whatever it is that the conversation or however the conversation plays out over the next hour plus or so. So with all of that, listener, if you joined last week, you know that I somewhat embarrassingly was, never a big Harry Potter fan, even though I am of the age group that is like perfect to be a Harry Potter fan. I tried to read the first book. It was like okay to me. I tried to read the second book. It was okay to me. It didn't like totally suck me in. This was like late elementary school, early middle school. I watched both of the movies when they were released, the first two, and I wasn't like, oh my God, I got to get to Hogwarts right away. I just sort of like, it never clicked for me. Which isn't to say that I was like ever a Harry Potter hater or anything like that. It just wasn't really my vibe. So that's my background with Harry Potter. Ramona, what is your like background and overall relationship to this series, both book and movie and otherwise, really?
I will try to keep this brief because I could go on for a while, but I got married in 2002, and all I really remember is I had bought the first 3 books for my then boyfriend slash fiance because he had mentioned wanting to read the books. So I went out for Christmas, got him the 3 books that were out at the time. And coming up on the week before we got married, he had like this whole week long bachelor thing going on with his friends. I was bored. So I picked up the first book and I read all 3 books just back to back to back that whole week. I was just sucked into it. And I got really lucky because the 4th book was just coming out as I finished the 3rd book. So I was able to kind of jump into the series that way. Got obsessed with it. My sisters read them. They got obsessed with it. And we started going to, the midnight releases. It was just a lot of fun. And I do remember my husband and I met working at a movie theater together, and the first movie came out, and we had seen the first movie together. And I was like, okay, this was before I read the books, and I just saw the movie. So I was like, yeah, it was good. It was fine. I felt it was very family kid oriented. Then once I read the books, I kind of looked at it again with a whole new light, and it was just full throttle from there. And I remember seeing this movie, Prisoner of Azkaban. We both took the day off of work and we went to a movie theater and watched it because I couldn't wait. So we saw this movie in the middle of the day when it came out, and it was definitely out of the 3 that had already come out, one of probably my favorite one thus far. So I have a little soft spot in my heart for this one, but yeah, it's been a journey. It's been a long journey.
Were you guys still dating when this one came out, or were you engaged yet?
What year was this? 2004,
I want to say.
Yeah, we were married. We got married in 2002. So we had been married a couple years already. And fun fact, he's still never read these books. So but this was when I still had the hope that he would read them. And I've learned he's not a book reader. He is a movie watcher. So that's what we do.
That's fair. I mean,
yeah,
we have all the movies here. So
yeah, we do.
He's all set.
He has seen all of them. And he's seen them many times with me. So bless his heart.
We're going to circle back to, I want to get, just general thoughts from him on what his favorite of the series is, but we'll hold on to that until a little bit later. Yeah. And Jacob, we're going to go to you next to get your background relationship to the whole Harry Potter series.
Yeah, so I was actually just kind of Googling just to get some extra information for myself. So I can't really remember exactly. I think I definitely read the books first, or some of the books. I know the movies started coming out before some of the books finished. But it's really hard for me to remember when I was doing what, because the first Harry Potter book came out when I was 4 years old.
Oh my gosh.
Nice.
Yeah. Oh man. Oh, that hurt.
Sorry. So, several of the books were, by the time I read them, I was in at elementary school, maybe sort of almost middle school time. But I do definitely remember reading them at some point. I think I was reading them as they were coming out. And then in the movies, the one thing I remember distinctly about the movies is the first 2. I remember seeing the first 3, so obviously including this one, in the theater. And then I went to see Goblet of Fire in the theater, and I was so upset when they cut out the Quidditch World Cup match that I never went and saw any of the rest of them.
Oh my god. I mean, technically they didn't cut it out. They just shortened it a lot.
Oh no, I think no, they show a lot of like before, and then there's a coin flip.
Yeah. And then that's it. Yeah, you're right. I guess they did cut it out.
And I was so excited for everything after that coin flip. And then they just and then they just said, "Nope, we're not showing you that." And so I
That
was
sucks.
mad. But that was getting to the point, obviously, where we'll talk about this later. But these books were getting a lot longer and becoming, a little bit more mature for, older readers who had started reading the series. So obviously, the further you go in the series, the more the movies had to cut out from the books. The other thing about the books is the notable thing is I did reread the series once in one day.
Aw,
nice.
the whole series?
Yeah, so I was like a really voracious reader as a kid. So one day I got up really early for some reason, and I was like, I'm going to start reading the Harry Potter books again. And I had nothing to do that whole day, and so I just somehow read them from start to finish, pretty much in one day. That's how I remember it. I think we went to like a baseball game or like a community baseball game, and I was reading there too. I just read straight through the day. But so in some ways that makes me a pretty big Harry Potter fan as a kid, but at the same time, I most people wouldn't really call me a Potterhead. I had some of the stuff, but I didn't go crazy about it. I've never been to the Wizarding World, Universal. We've all sorted ourselves into houses, which maybe we'll talk about that. But it wasn't. I didn't take it that seriously.
Okay, let's get Duke's background first, and then I want to hear what houses all of you guys are in.
Okay. Yeah, I was pretty young, so I don't really remember the first year. I remember specifically my mom coming home with the Chamber of Secrets VHS, and I was like, "Oh yeah, awesome!" I believe we watched it. Now that would have been, I don't know, maybe 2003-ish. We definitely had already watched the first one. I own all the books, so yeah, we were reading them around that same time too, so that's definitely grew up. I remember going to see at least 4 in theaters. Then I saw 7 part 1 and part 2 definitely in theaters. Dobby dying, everybody was crying, just so yeah.
Spoilers, dude.
Spoilers, yeah.
I don't know why you're listening to the Prisoner of Azkaban. Unless you're that one girl on TikTok I've seen who's like reading them and she doesn't know any idea what's coming next. You should know what goes on. You should have seen these movies by now.
I don't think I definitely haven't seen all of them, and I don't think I knew about Dobby. I probably did. I know a lot of the other stuff.
Wow, spoilers are
blank's Dumbledore, or how it goes. Sorry to cut you off.
Wow, no. I'm sorry for spoiling Dobby's death, but
it's fine. Like I said, I'm not the biggest Potter guy, so
I clearly like when you were like, oh, I couldn't get into the books. I was like, okay, well, was he an adult? And then you said late elementary, and I was like, oh man, you really, because that's like the first year are geared for the elementary audience, and then it kind of.
I am literally the perfect age for like Potter fandom.
Well, yeah, you would be.
Yeah.
I was
it's you and me.
Yeah.
And Jacob. And then Ramona's like the cool mom who kind of got into it.
I wasn't a mom at the time.
But you weren't a mom yet.
No, I was not a mom yet.
Duke, I think you're aging her a little bit.
Let me just say, I will age myself. I got married when I was 21. So
math.
Math. My first daughter wasn't born until 2010.
Oh,
so
wow.
yeah, I was just the married lady who liked Harry Potter.
Which is
but I am a mom. Yeah, and I'm reading actually the series to my 11-year-old now, so I'm kind of passing it down.
Exciting.
Yeah.
Okay, so before we do our houses, I will say, prepping obviously for the last episode and this episode, I watched Philosopher's Stone, Sorcerer's Stone, and then had to watch Chamber of Secrets after that. Obviously watched Prisoner of Azkaban for this, and then I watched Goblet of Fire because I had already seen that one, so that was like a rewatch for me, or I'd mostly seen that one. And then after consuming all this Harry Potter, what I did was I went down to my local library and I checked out the first 5 books. So I'm gonna give it a try. I'm gonna give it a go. I think now I'm in a place where I can maybe enjoy them a little bit more. I feel like I'm more open to trying new things at this point in my life. So I think, I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to finally sitting down and reading these books. And then once I finish the, book series, I will go through and watch the last 4 movies. So that's my plan with Harry Potter right now. And I just want to be open and honest with everyone about that because I want you guys to know where it is that I'm coming from. With all that being said, before we get into like this movie itself, now that we have everyone's background about their relationship to Harry Potter and sort of how you guys all came to enjoy and love Harry Potter, what houses are you guys in? Have you done the sorting quiz? Duke, I want to go to you first on this one.
I think I did the quiz a long time ago. I didn't like the answer. I just say I'm Gryffindor because I have red hair.
You got Slytherin, didn't you?
Definitely didn't get Slytherin. I probably got Ravenclaw, probably. I don't know. But I just say I'm Gryffindor. I don't believe it. You don't dress up as Ron Weasley for Halloween every year for about all of high school and elementary to then not be sorted into Gryffindor. So, I just don't follow. I'm just Gryffindor. Let's leave it at that.
How many times were you Ron Weasley?
Oh boy. First was grade 2 probably, and we did like the whole thing. My brother was Harry, and my mom was McGonagall. My dad was Dumbledore.
Aw.
And then I don't know. Then when you get into high school, it's kind of like you kind of dress up. So I just would throw the robe on. But definitely. Oh man, 5, 6, 7 times probably.
Okay.
I've been Ron. Yeah. It's an easy costume when you're a ginger.
Yeah, it's fair. You just have to throw on the tie and the robe.
And then, but then there reaches a point where you used to be called like, oh, hey, you look like Ron Weasley. And then around the mid 2010s, Ed Sheeran starts coming in. And I'm always like, no, we used to be a society. But yeah, Ron Weasley. So Gryffindor, sorry.
Even though you're not really a Gryffindor.
I think I'm Ravenclaw. So I'm fine with that. They need all the help they can get, in terms of popularity, but I like Gryffindor, if Harry Potter can choose his own house, I can choose my own house. I don't need to.
That's true.
He was so close to going Slytherin, and then he was just like, nah, don't do this to me.
He had an option.
So, if there was actually a real hat, I would have persuaded them to get me into
there you go.
Gryffindor. So yeah.
Well, listen, like, I think if you took that sorting hat quiz, especially if you were like a kid when you took it, I think
I was a full-grown adult.
If
we're doing the official one, that didn't launch till like mid 2010s. So yeah, I was a teenager by then.
Okay, yeah. But when you were taking those kinds of quizzes, and when the official one came out, like most people are pulling a Harry Potter.
Oh, you're trying to answer to get what you want. Yeah.
You're willing yourself into Gryffindor if you can, and to be fair, that's because really, if you don't recontextualize it, the way J.K. Rowling kind of presents the houses is the cool, brave, heroic kids, the dumb losers, the nerdy losers, and the spawn of Satan. So like,
yeah, basically,
spawn of Satan.
Who's the nerdy losers and who's the dumb losers?
Hufflepuff is dumb losers. Ravenclaw is nerdy losers.
Okay. So I was asking this last week. Is Hufflepuff, are they like the stoner kids, or am I making that up? Is it like implied that they're stoners?
I don't think implied's the right word, but I mean, yes, if you're gonna do genericness, yes, probably.
I've kind of like, now I kind of, it's like, okay, Gryffindor's like preppy kids, Hufflepuff is like jocks, Ravenclaw is still nerds, and Slytherin is still, bullies, whatever. I mean, they don't have anything except for just evil, really. I mean, people try and be like, well, they're cunning, they're
they each have their strengths.
But but anyway, I would say I'm a Hufflepuff now. Just I think Hufflepuff is kind of more like a meek, more mild mannered, like kind of jovial, just chill
Yeah.
bunch.
Jacob,
In
no
a
way
way.
did you just set up Hufflepuff as dumb and nerdy, and then 2 minutes later say, "And that's me."
Listen. If you recontextualize it, look, if you really treat it like real life, Gryffindor is probably like the most hated house other than Slytherin, because like they're a bunch of pricks, man. A lot of them, like
That would actually
self-important.
be a good series. Take a TV series from a Hufflepuff, and then it gives you a whole new angle of what these houses are. That could be cool. Jacob, I like that idea that I'm pulling from what you're saying.
I like it.
Because I'm pretty sure everybody does think Gryffindors are kind of assholes.
No, I don't.
Well, what house are you in, Ramona?
If we're going, okay, I am kind of the same way. Like in my heart, I want to be a Gryffindor because those books are from the viewpoint of Harry, who's a Gryffindor, and you're in that world so much more than the other houses. But if I'm being completely honest with myself, I am 100% a Hufflepuff. It's just my character, it's my personality. I mean, I think I have maybe traits of all of the houses, but
Whoa.
the overwhelming traits I think would put me in Hufflepuff. And I will say that when I took the test on the website, I took it twice because I was pissed. Both times I got Hufflepuff. So I even tried to change my answers to get Gryffindor, and the computer's like, no, you're a Hufflepuff. So I'm gonna have to say I am a Hufflepuff.
Nice. Well, it sounds like Hufflepuff is good vibes. So
Yeah.
we like
Yeah.
that. You guys both definitely have great vibes. And I still think that Duke is a Slytherin because he, even though he got one answer, he insists on the other. In the most cunning and sly ways, he tries to force his way into Gryffindor, which is like the most Slytherin thing that you could do.
It is very Slytherin.
Yeah.
It is.
So then Harry Slytherin, because he forced his way into Gryffindor.
Whatever you got to do, man.
He willed himself.
Kinda, yeah.
Yeah.
You're forcing it. Harry just willed it into existence. There's a slight difference,
I see how it is.
Yeah, I got Gryffindor when I took the quiz. I don't know if that's right.
I was thinking that when everyone else was answering, I was like, what would Raph be? And I was like, yeah, I could see Gryffindor.
Yeah, I don't know if I am a Gryffindor, but obviously, like, not being the biggest Harry Potter fan, I like knew somewhat while I was taking the quiz of like what answers would get me where. But I really did just like answer kind of truthfully, or like as truthfully as you like can when you're taking those like silly online quizzes. And and that's what came up. I'm not all the way convinced that I am a Gryffindor, but I guess I'll take it, even though everyone kind of thinks that they're pricks, because all Gryffindors think that the world revolves around them, which, now that I say it out loud, totally fits my vibe. So yeah, I'm a Gryffindor. Yeah. Total prick.
Well, you know what? When you save the Wizarding World 7 times, you can say that the world revolves around you because you've earned it.
I have not. I have not done that.
You live in New York, so that's brave. Hats off to you.
Center of the universe, baby.
Yes.
Okay. So it all checks out. It's all checking out. Amazing. So, we've got all this extensive background for all of us, including which houses we all fall into. Let's dive into this movie itself a little bit. I guess we already sort of spoke about it, and like everyone's first time seeing this. Did you guys all see this in theaters when it came out?
I did, yes.
I don't think I did.
To the best of my knowledge, yeah, I did.
Okay. So we're 2 for 4, it sounds like. I'm pretty sure I did not see this in the theaters. So, okay, cool. Well, I guess to just like ask the big question of like why this Harry Potter movie in particular is one that we should consider essential as opposed to, you know, the other six in the series that are not, with the exception of the first one. Duke, why don't we start with you? What would you say is just like the main reason for this one in particular making it into the canon, say, over the other ones?
Oh boy. Well, I will say that this one is definitely not to crap on any of the other directors in the series, but I think Alfonso Cuarón, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, he's definitely a league above the other one. So his direction is better. I think we get a couple, like this is when you get Gary Oldman. You really, not that the series already didn't have, British heavyweights, but this is where you really start bringing in the acting talent. You get David Thewlis, I believe, unless I'm butchering his first name, as Lupin. Gary Oldman as Sirius Black is just probably arguably one of the best performances, not only just in this movie, but across the series.
Mm-hmm.
The kid actors are starting to actually, develop into proper actors that can hold a take.
Mm-hmm.
In the first film, I think Christopher Columbus talked about how there's a lot of cuts because the actors really couldn't keep it together for too long. Just the mature, as we mentioned, this is when the series really starts maturing, but also it's the only one that doesn't actually have an appearance from Voldemort, which is kind of interesting, and just really darker subject matter. And I think Huron really streamlined the novel, chose what to focus on, and just it blends the fantasy really well with the mature storyline in ways that the laters, I think, it's hard to make a really serious fantasy movie when you have wands and you're shouting out spells, but somehow it all just comes together quite nice. And there's just some beautiful shots in the movie too, like
Oh yeah.
when Snape's holding the kids back. I don't know, just framing and all that. It's just chef kiss. Mwah.
I love it. Ramona, what do you have on that front?
I would say, I don't want to repeat everything Duke has said, but he nailed it. I just think that it kind of took the I hate to say that, the kitty vibe from the first two movies. I hate to say that because even though they're Christopher Columbus, you're not going in looking for something dark and adult watching those two movies, but they're still entertaining in their own right. But I just think Prisoner of Azkaban took, that kitty vibe out of the movie, out of the series, and kind of just pushed it into something, I think, a lot more interesting. I think it was a lot more appealing to different groups of people at that point. And the series, as it goes, the storyline gets darker and gets more adult. And I think that it was necessary for somebody else to come in and kind of take these kids past the how old were they in the first one, 11 and 12-year old, kind of colorful, nothing really, there's not a whole lot at stake in the first two movies to me. But I think with the third movie, Alfonso came in, he changed the whole aesthetic of it, and I just think he took it and made it, and like Du said, I do think he's the best director out of the entire series, and it's kind of a shame he didn't do some more of the movies. I understand why not, but I don't know. He took it to a different level that I don't think Christopher Columbus could have taken it to. And I think that if he hadn't stepped in and made Prisoner of Azkaban the way that he did, that the rest of the movies would have probably suffered for that. I don't know that anyone could have taken that vision and really continued with it. I think he started it. So I can see why people think this is the best movie out of the eight. It's not my favorite out of the eight, but it's definitely probably the the best one in terms of direction, in terms of style, production. And yeah, the kids get better acting. The first two movies, it's kind of like, they're still learning. But
Hmm.
this movie really kind of gave them more emotion to deal with, and more emotional stakes, and they really had to put like something more into it than just being cute. Oh, they're cute. They're running through the hallway, and I don't know. I just
Yeah.
I appreciate what Alfonso did for the series, and again, I already said this, but I honestly do not think that the movies would have gone the direction they did without his vision first. So I appreciate this movie for what it is and what it brought to the series.
Yeah, it stands in a really interesting place in the entire series. There's like a total vibe change, but it feels
Oh
kind of
yeah.
necessary. Um, yeah, Jacob, what do you think of like the whole pivot from a like the first two movies that certainly like work in their own rights as children's movies, these like really awe-inspiring fantasy flicks, as opposed to like what this movie does, and then sort of like ushering in, so to speak, the vibes for the rest of the series.
Yeah, well, I think what we've talked about a little bit is, I mean, clearly this movie kind of serves as an inflection point for the series. A lot of that has to do with Alfonso Cuarón's direction, and also just I mean, this book I think naturally is an inflection point in the series overall. I mean, the book started to get longer and more mature starting with this one, kind of as it went on. So um, you know, the one of the interesting things though is I think that rewatching this movie, um, I was prepared for it to go further in the direction that the later movies did.
Hmm.
I had forgotten this kind of is almost like a passing of the torch in some ways from the tone of the first two movies to the darker tone that we start to see after this movie. It still captures some of that magic. There's some great scenes of just kind of goofing around at school and some things.
Hmm.
And I was honestly shocked. I was ready to see nothing but street clothes, which I think we'll talk about the way this movie started to go from robes to street clothes, and the aesthetics of that. But watching the movie, I was shocked to see how much they were still in their robes in this movie. I thought this was the one. It was the
Mhm.
one where it started to change, but it's not the one where they were just running around in street clothes the whole time, which I think makes a big difference in this movie. I think that balance between the robes and those other clothes works better. And you know, the there's a bit of a coming of age story. I mean, the whole series is a coming of age story, obviously, but there's a specific kind of darker coming of age story here, where the first two movies are a little bit younger skewing, and in this movie, um, it's a little darker tone, and Harry's going through a little bit more complicated coming of age of like discovering some light and dark things about his parents' past, and some of the complicated relationships that everything's not so clear cut as it had been
Mhm.
in the past. So I think that's really interesting. And I'm sure we're going to talk more about the direction here, but one thing that I really enjoyed rewatching it was, the time travel plays a crucial element at the end of this story, but it's really not introduced until really right there at the end. But
Hmm.
Alfonso Cuarón's like, I'm going to have as many dynamic shots through this clock tower as I can fit in this
Yeah.
movie,
Yeah.
and they're all just awesome, and I love all of the foreshadowing of how time is going to play into the story, and they just make for really fun and engaging shots.
Yeah, I feel like that was the one big thing that stood out to me is like you have a director, and again, like Duke said, don't want to throw shade or anything at the other directors in the series, but Kieran is coming to this with like a much wider vocabulary of filmmaking than some of the other folks who end up working um, within the series, and I think in ways that both like benefits and not detracts, but like takes away a little bit from this movie, depending on which way you're coming at it from, and I think we'll get into that. But a lot of the shot choices in this movie are like so cool, and there's so much flair in this movie from a just like cinematography and like use of CGI and VFX and things like that that is sort of lacking from the rest of the films. And I think a lot of that is due to just like who you have in the director's chair and someone who is able to take those like big bold swings visually in ways that some of the other directors aren't able to. But on top of that, I also think a lot of it is just like this particular story and where it sits within the entire series. Like so like we were saying, it's also the only movie that doesn't feature Voldemort, so it isn't quite as dark as the rest of the series, where things are like life and death and not brooding, but there is a lot more intensity to the story. Whereas this one, yes, it is a little bit darker than the first two. It's not just about the awe and wonder of entering the world of wizarding and Hogwarts and all that stuff. So like, I think with that, there was this like ability within this movie to have some playfulness, but also like tackle some adult subject matter. Which I thought was kind of cool and sort of like lends itself to what it is that Alfonso Cuarón is able to do here. But I guess to talk about him like in general, Ramon, I think you were the one who wrote the write-up article for this on the website. Do you remember what you wrote about like how Cuarón got involved as director for this film?
Oh gosh. There goes my microphone. I'm so sorry. We are cursed. I swear. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I barely moved and it just fell over. I'm trying to think. God, I think I it's been several years since I wrote that. I think that I remember that he had not read the books when he took the job, and they offered him the movie after Chris Columbus. I remember Chris Columbus had wanted to stop directing so he could spend more time with his children, but he was going to stay on to produce, and he was involved in the journey to find the new director. And I don't think that they searched very long before they offered Alfonso the movie. So I know that he was, if I'm remembering, he was coming off of what was that movie? The movie that he wrote and directed that was pretty big.
Y tu mamá también.
Yes, that's it. I could not remember the name of it. Anyway, so he was not going to actually take the job to direct Prison of Azkaban because I think after coming off of that film, being offered to direct like a Harry Potter film, which is this big budgeted fantasy popular, I think he found that to be a little intimidating. But his friend Guillermo del Toro actually convinced him to take the job. He said that he should read the books and he could, kind of see what the vision was, what the potential was there for him. And I think that Alfonso read the books and that's what kind of triggered him to take the job. So I think that we have Del Toro to thank for that, because otherwise I'm not sure that Alfonso Cuarón would have actually directed the third Harry Potter movie. But I mean, you can kind of see, you're coming off of Y Tu Mama Tambien, and all of a sudden they're saying, hey, here's a whole bunch of money to direct a really popular, successful book series. So I can understand why he might have been a little hesitant, but thank God that he talked to his friend and Guillermo convinced him to do it.
Thank you, Guillermo.
Yes.
It is a really interesting entry within his filmography because
Yeah,
you look at
yeah.
the timeline and it's like Y tu mama tambien, and then it's this, and then I think Children of Men
Oh God.
is what he does right after, which is just like
I forgot he did Children of Men. That's such a great movie.
amazing movie, but like an insane 3-movie run. Just like very, 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 very different vibes all
Yeah.
across the board.
Yeah.
um, Duke, how do you think that this movie would have played out if Guillermo del Toro had directed it instead? I feel like that's an interesting
Yeah.
question.
Well, I was just on the Wikipedia page while Ramona was talking, and apparently he wanted to take it he wanted it to be Dickensian, like Charles Dickens vibe, I guess, to
Oh.
it, which I don't really, get that from Del Toro's previous filmography. But so if that's true and that's what he wanted, I don't know. But then I guess he didn't want to direct because it was the first two were too nice and bubbly, I guess. So I don't know. Dickinson. It's very hard to kind of wrap my head around that with Del Toro. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I can't imagine Del Toro doing it.
It would look amazing.
It would look amazing. Probably better than Prisoner of Azkaban already looks.
Which is
But,
saying a lot.
yeah.
I feel like this movie looks great.
It's awesome.
No, Del Toro, I could see like, I don't know, I could almost see like the werewolf almost being more like, who's the, like, what's his name? Doug Jones? Is that the guy that works with him a lot? I could almost see like him being like the werewolf, like Del Toro wanting to achieve it like practically. So I could almost see maybe there being less CGI, like even the hippogriff, maybe they'd do like even more practical stuff with that. So I could see that. As for as for tone, I don't know. I can't see it being too much. Though I could see it being more magical. My issue with this film is that I feel like it's not as magical. Like you watch the first and you get this magical feeling. And I don't get that as much with the third.
Yeah.
And I do get like if Dickensian, I don't know how you pronounce that Charles Dickinson term, but I can see like
Dickensian? Is that it?
Dickensian maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
Like you say that and I'm thinking, Scrooge, Ebenezer Scrooge. I'm thinking,
Oliver.
Orphans. Yeah, Oliver. I'm getting a magical vibe though when I think of his name. Dickens. There's Dickens festivals, where they kind of recreate his vibe. So I get magical from that. So I can see maybe it being me feeling a more magical sense from a Del Toro Prisoner of Azkaban than I currently do with Alfonso's.
Interesting. Jacob, do you also feel like this movie is less magical than the first two? I mean, I haven't seen many of the others, but then like, how does it fall into, where does it rank magically with the rest of the flicks?
I think I may have thought that more before I rewatched it. I think my rewatch of it, I was really just having such a good time. I wasn't really thinking that. But I think maybe part of the want about them being a little more younger skewing, but the Quidditch and just having this fun, there's a lot more fun, carefree. Truly, obviously, there's still like very problematic things happening, and there is danger. But a lot of that magic, especially y'all talked about it last week, I'm sure, about the first movie, is being introduced to all of this stuff. Whereas here, he's like, we don't really get Quidditch. I mean, there's a scene of Quidditch, but it's just for an interaction with the Dementor. Like everything in this is kind of tampered down. There's more darkness afoot, so you just don't get that same thing. And I don't know that you ever really get it as much in the later movies. I mean, I know I was saying that the first two movies, the bright aspect with the magic and the a little bit more carefree. I feel like the first two movies are a little more magical, and then we have to deal with darker stuff from the series. And I think, and I think I was talking about the Quidditch. not being able to focus that much, and it's a really stormy thing, and then Harry's hit with a Dementor. I mean, it's not really. We just don't have as much time for that, and we don't have that much time for the more fun classes either. It's like we have we get the cool Defense Against the Dark Arts section with the boggart and all that, but we don't get a lot more classes. We have a lot more plot to deal with. Star series, this book forward, I think.
Yeah, but in my opinion, I'm not talking like less magic in display in this movie. I'm saying it just overall feels less magical.
We're talking
in a
about
way like the streak.
I mean, I think some of the feeling of less magical is the darker tones. Personally, I think, and some of the lack of.
But you can have dark mat. Like I'm just like, the use of street clothes, like walking around Hogwarts grounds in street clothes, as opposed to being in your robes. I just feel like you all of a sudden lose that, like the immersion of like you're in somewhere. Oh, now I see someone in blue jeans. I feel like you're taking something away there.
I totally agree with that part. Yeah.
Like when you go to Hogsmeade, yeah, whatever, wear your blue jeans or whatever. But when you're at the grounds and then you're all of a sudden, you're walking on a hill, if Hogwarts Castle's in the background, it's like, well, I'm just watching British kids, like it's where if you're in the robes, you're in Hogwarts, that, and fist punching, you got wands, people. I don't know,
that I will agree, and I thought it was going to be worse in this movie. I already said that, but I think that it makes logistical sense that if these kids are on like an off time and there's no reason for them to be in robes. But aesthetically, for that magical feeling, yeah, I do agree.
And this is the one, like later on, like they wear their robes, but then they're way more loose in terms of, like what their clothing looks like. And I think that just had kind of a, it's like once you open that door, it never fully closes. So once you let them wear their street clothes, then you never really take it. You can't really take that away, and then it continues on. I don't know. I do think the first two, in my opinion, out of all 8, are the most magical. I think, as it gets darker, you lose a bit of that carefree, whimsical almost tone, but I don't know. I don't want to blame Curon, but I think he was also the one that wanted them in street clothes sometimes, so do with that as you will.
Yeah, I don't know. I still, for me, I get a magical sort of vibe from this movie. Well, maybe it's not fully magical, but I do think that this movie does inspire a lot of awe and wonder in very different ways from how the first two do. And I haven't seen much of the latter series, so I don't know like which direction they necessarily go in, but having seen Goblet of Fire, I feel like that sort of like wonder and awe that is in the first 3 movies, although in different ways, for me, got kind of lost. And I think it's because, the only director who I know by name from the series outside of Alfonso Cuarón is Chris Columbus. And like they're both known for, very different styles, but still 2 distinct styles as filmmakers. And like, I don't know if now is the right time to get into it, but I feel like the sort of latter movies, maybe in response to this, I feel like there was a lot more oversight from the corporate entity in the studio and the original writer in terms of like making sure that it matches their vision of what they expect this to look like in order to like satisfy fans to the largest degree possible, as opposed to this is always the gamble with big franchise filmmaking, especially in something like this where like you're like, hey, let's just give one of these movies to someone who has a unique vision, and it might not be totally in line with what it is that we're expecting based on what's on the page, but it'll still be pretty damn cool because
Yeah.
it's Alfonso Cuarón, and like, he's going to make a great movie, even if it isn't totally in line with like what we thought a Harry Potter movie was supposed to look like.
I don't even think you could blame Curon for that. I think maybe
Mike
Mike. I
Newell.
think it's Mike.
Mhm.
Is it Mike Newell
Newell.
who directed 4?
Newell.
Neil. I think maybe
Newell.
Newell. Whatever it is. I think
Newell.
maybe Goblet of Fire wasn't as well received, or maybe they weren't too thrilled with
David
him,
Yates.
and then they got, I don't remember, David Yates, and maybe, yeah, you know, I think definitely as we see later, I mean, looking at franchises today, once you find a director who you kind of like, I think it's kind of like just bring it home. I mean, the Hunger Games keeps brings back Francis Lawrence for everyone. I think once you find a director maybe for these franchises that clicks, and
Yeah, and you
can
can
just
see
go the
that
distance
in
with
the
it, I guess,
last
to please them.
4 movies. Did David Yates do all 4 of the last movies? That
5, yeah, and then he
and
did all 3
but
Fantastic Beasts as well,
it
which I
did, it
think
did.
needed a
But the
new
thing
vision. I
is
think he
in
needed.
terms of the last 4, I think those are the most cohesive movies together because it was David Yates. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah. Well, once you get, I mean, you lose something when you go with like a same director. I know that's an issue some people have with the Mission Impossible films. Is there was each movie had
Yeah.
its own director, and that added something. Where here it's like, yeah, once you
But
get the same, like, yeah,
yeah,
you get the
but I think
same
you kind of need
cohesive
that
style
at
and all
least in
that.
terms of because if you look at Christopher Columbus's vision for the first 2 movies, and then you look at Prisoner of
Hmm.
Azkaban, even the production is different. Hogwarts looks different. Hagrid's hut is somewhere
Yeah,
else. You know, the bridge is different. So you're changing things, and I get why, everyone has their own vision, and that's fine. But when you're a fan of the movies and you're a fan of the books, you see those are very glaringly obvious, inconsistencies for the movie because each director comes in, oh, well, I want it to look like this now, and I want this to be over here, and I want them to dress this way. To go back a little bit to them wearing street clothes, I didn't, and I think I might have written this in my Canon piece, but the purpose of them wearing those contemporary clothing was to give the characters more of an identity to the people who haven't read the books. So instead of just seeing them all in these uniforms, now you're seeing them how they would dress outside of the uniforms, and it kind of gives them more of a personality. So I didn't really mind that so much, and actually I was kind of glad they did that because I know in the books they wore the stupid pointed hats a lot, and I'm so glad they didn't put that in the movies. So I kind of see
yeah.
where Alfonso was going with that. He was trying to get it. It's more of a character piece than it is the first 2 movies, which was introducing us to the world and introducing us to, what Harry's up against. This one kind of made it a little bit more personal because it was his parents' murderer, is was
Murder,
he
yeah.
escaped
What
and
I
yeah, so
think, yeah,
you have more of
and
that,
that's
like
also
Jacob said,
why.
it was a coming of age film almost for Harry. And it was something that
Mm.
was a lot more profound to him than just fighting Voldemort and Sorcerer's Stone and then the snake, Tom Riddle in the second one. Now he's dealing with something that's a lot closer to him personally because of his parents and what Sirius meant to them and vice versa. So, I could see the consistency with the directors. And honestly, I think Prisoner of Azkaban fits the uh, aesthetic of, David Yates a lot more than I thought Goblet of Fire did. If you were to play Prisoner of Azkaban right before I'd say, Order of the Phoenix, I could see that kind of merging a little bit better than Goblet of Fire did, and obviously the first 2 movies. So I think there's just pros and cons to having a different director for each movie and pros and cons, of keeping the same one and keeping that consistency in the series.
Yeah, I would almost argue that it's not even like a issue with just keeping consistency. It's like an
Yeah.
issue of just playing it safe. Where, so Jacob, I want to throw this question to you. this, in many ways, at least of the 4 that I've seen, feels like the most ambitious of the Harry Potter movies. Do you feel like that's a safe thing to say? I know that that's tricky, like with what we're saying, when it's a beloved book franchise and fans are expecting a certain thing. But do you feel like this is the most ambitious in terms of like its vision for what a Harry Potter movie could be?
I think that's fair. Clearly, I do have to give, and the props was given last week, I'm sure, to Chris Columbus setting up everything from scratch. Obviously, I mean, you have the descriptions in the book, but um, whatever inconsistencies there are, obviously the overall aesthetic, amazing. But the way this movie was shot and the vision for this and how Hogwarts looks and works. Like I was thinking about that, about how does this Hogwarts? I've gone back and watched them in a while, so I can't really say. But regardless, it's hard for me to think any movie where Hogwarts could look any better than it does in this movie. I mean, some of that's the way it's shot. I love. There's a lot of emphasis on the Whomping Willow in this movie. Um, there's a lot of emphasis on the Whomping Willow just kind of like off school, and those shots are just were always stunning to me on this rewatch. And I don't know if the clock tower, the pendulum swinging down in that archway was always there, but man, is it just cool? It's cool to me. Um, and then I think it kind of expanded. It feels like it almost expanded the grounds a little bit in terms of we see more of the mountains around it, and we get that beautiful scene of Harry riding Buckbeak over kind of the river or ford, whatever that is, and I mean it's just stunning to look at. And there was a lot a lot of this was just from the book, but there's a lot to handle in terms of story and how you balance it. And it mostly just handles it so deftly. I do think it's a little funny at the end of the movie when they rescue Sirius from Azkaban, because after all this movie that you've had, there's just like, and we rode Buckbeak to Azkaban and got Sirius. And
well,
with
they
no
didn't go to
trouble.
Azkaban. They went to the top of the tower of Hogwarts, where he was being held there.
Oh,
But yeah, I get what you're
okay,
saying.
at the top. Okay, that makes a little more sense. I got a little confused on the rewatch of like when did they take him and why weren't they
Yeah, that was the
guarding
weird
him
thing because in the
anymore better?
book, and it's been a while since I saw the third movie, but in the book, he's going to be given the kiss by the Dementors, which is essentially going to kill him. A fate worse than death, and then they put him in the tower and lock him up there. But I'm like, is like you said, like I guess someone could be guarding him on the outside, but there's this big old window there that he can just come out in, and I don't know. They were running out of time, I guess.
Had to wrap things up. So I feel like another sort of big factor in this playing like a transition sort of role within the series was kind of an outside force. But the original actor who played Dumbledore sadly passed away after the second movie, so they had to bring in a new Dumbledore. I'm forgetting the names of both of the actors, and I'm sure all of you guys are going to yell at me now for that.
Richard Harris.
Michael Gambon.
Yes. Richard Harris is the one who passed away.
Thank you both
You're welcome.
for jumping in and saving my skin. But I feel like that like kind of like naturally, for lack of a better word, sort of like forced the series to like change its vibe because of the change in Dumbledore. Like, do you guys?
Well, Dumbledore changed, definitely.
Yeah.
What do you guys make of that change?
I liked it, to be honest with you. I have no problem with Richard Harris as Dumbledore in the first two films. Um, he's not necessarily in the first two films as much as Dumbledore is in the rest of the films, but he was like that very regal, kind of Dumbledore.
Well,
Just a very different vibe. But I think Gambon's, even if it wasn't necessarily 100% faithful to the Dumbledore in the books, I thought he brought a lot more personality to Dumbledore. A lot, it was just something he was more fun, kind of quirky, which I appreciated that in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I
Duke, I
think
feel like you were going to jump in.
oh, I was.
Go for- that.
Well,
Yeah.
I'll give her quirky. I don't know if Dumbledore's fun. I mean, I
He's
think
funky.
funky. That's not the same as fun. It's also, I think, important to note that at least the first 3 or 4 movies were also made before the series had finished. So, we find out a lot more about Dumbledore that I think probably influenced Gambon's performance in the later movies. Then, Harris only had like the first 2-3 books. We don't even know if he read them. I'm pretty sure he did. I know Rowling would have, I think, told like Alan Rickman and I'm forgetting Jason Isaacs, whoever played Lucius Malfoy. Like she gave them details about like how their characters were going to go later in the books, so that they didn't like contradict anything in their performances. I think Harris definitely gives like a more subdued, like a wise, older wizard, where Gambon definitely starts playing a bit more shady. You start to see
Well,
a bit more
Dumbledore
shade.
is a shady person.
Well,
To be
yes,
fair.
but I'm saying I think, in the first 2 books, Dumbledore isn't as shady. And then as you go on, you see that there's a lot more layers to Dumbledore.
Yeah.
And Gambon, I think, plays that better, but you can't really knock that against Harris because Harris didn't really know that. I think if Harris hadn't unfortunately passed, I think he could have also played a good Dumbledore. They're 2 different Dumbledores. And again, yes, the split from the dark, from the light Harry Potter, the change in Dumbledore, I think it's interesting. Had he passed a book later,
Can
what
you
would have happened?
see? Can you see Michael, or not Michael Gambon, Richard Harris as Dumbledore from the first 2 films fitting in with Alfonso Cuarón's vision, like how he changed the novel or changed the film? Can you see him fitting in with kind of that
Yeah,
style?
I mean, everybody else seamlessly transitioned. I don't think Harris would have had any issue. I think you just kind of tweak it.
well,
I think he would have changed his style completely.
Mm.
Not
I
in
think-
terms of look, the way he
Oh, and look. Oh,
yeah,
I mean,
appearance. Yeah.
I think it wouldn't have been as drastic of a change. I think
Yeah.
they probably would have modified him a bit. Maybe his exterior, but I think the beard would have stayed the same and all that. Just maybe his robes would have been a bit
Would have
updated,
shaved the beard off.
or he would have handlebar mustache or
Yeah, just a
twirls.
radically different. Yeah, buzz cut.
I think he could. No, I think he could have done the. I think he could have done the role. Again, like as I mentioned earlier, these are all like acclaimed British and European actors, so I'm sure he could have easily shifted his performance subtly to go in the new direction that they took Dumbledore in, while maintaining, that cohesion between Columbus's and Cuarón's.
Yeah.
Again, it's you can't. This is all what ifs, of course.
Right.
It's not, you can't really say he couldn't do it because you can never know that for sure. I do think Richard Harris Dumbledore going from Richard Harris to Michael Gambon, as a kid, I don't know if I even noticed, that sounds kind of not mean, but as a kid, I don't think you really pick up on recastings that much, especially when you have the beard and the robes, hiding a lot of the performance, as opposed to, if they had recast, maybe someone like Ron or even Hermione, where, the beard, as they say, a beard does a lot of work on a man's facial. So, you don't notice it as much as maybe as you'd like. I mean, a lot of people are talking about, like William Hurt passing and Harrison Ford playing Thunderbolt Ross and him losing the mustache. Oh, come on. I'm bringing it back, Raph. Don't you worry. The
We cut
loss of the
Jacob off like 4
mustache
times. We got to get back to Jacob's
brings,
thoughts before
it's
you go
not
to your Harrison Ford,
cohesion.
whatever.
Hey, this is great, man. This is great. Don't you worry.
Jacob, what were you going to say before Duke?
All I was going to say is like Raph's like Duke said, it's difficult to say how Richard Harris would have done with the later books, the darker aspects of Dumbledore. But I do think in this particular movie, Richard Harris would have been absolutely great. And I think in my mind right now, this is the best Dumbledore that Gambon gives us in terms of keeping with that character as well. He's got a bit more of a light and mischievous side that I think Richard Harris kind of showed in the first 2 movies. Is kind of more, and obviously Dumbledore in the books and the movies becomes more complex in terms of the way he operates. But there's an established kind of twinkle in his eye that there's more going on behind the scenes. And again, I was on the rewatch. I remember Gambon, and how he in the later movies he gets a little more intense. But in this movie, he was kind of playing it again, kind of lightly. I love, when they come out of Hagrid's hut and they got their back turned to the back in time Harry and Hermione, and Dumbledore's just like, "Oh, look over here, we have the grounds," and he's and the way that he just casually enters the hospital and is like, "Okay, I think you need to go back in time, just 3 turns and ought to do it." Then he goes out of the room and sees them outside of the room after they had just left or whatever, and was like, "I don't know what you're talking about. Nothing happened. I don't know." It's a really good performance from, I think, and closer to Harris's. And then, as the movies get more intense, so does his performance, and that's where the differences start to highlight after this, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there is a playful, like, mischief nature to his performance, and I feel like the movie as a whole, which is for me what makes it so enjoyable. The other big addition, though, in terms of acting, and I feel like we have touched on it a little bit, but I do want to give all of you guys the opportunity to talk about it specifically, and like what it means for this movie, is the addition of Gary Oldman as Sirius Black. So Jacob, I feel like you were speaking the most highly of it, so maybe we'll start with you in terms of just like what you feel like he is bringing to this, and like what his performance does to like elevate this movie and the series as a whole.
Well, that's kind of interesting. I don't know if that was correct. I think it might have been Duke. Maybe that was talking about that. I love Gary Oldman, and he's really great as Sirius Black in here. But at the same time, I actually don't. So Sirius Black is good in this movie, but the most of the time we get to see him, most of his screen time is this kind of just crazed guy. But he does the craze really good. And our first time we really get to stick with him is in the Shrieking Shack, when they're that confrontation with Peter Pettigrew and everybody. And you definitely get that this is a guy that has had a bit of a mental break from being in prison for 12 years, and the worst prison for wizards. And he conveys that very well. And I think Gary Oldman later in the series gets to do some more work, some more of the softer side. Because you have to admit, it's a bit funny. Right after the Shrieking Shack, I mean, Harry has just gone from thinking Sirius Black killed his parents or led to his parents' murder, and just finding out that that's not the case. And then Sirius is like, "Well, you want to live? You want to live in my house?" And like all that Harry has really seen of this guy still is pretty crazy, despite the fact that he now knows that he was innocent. So it's still kind of funny. But of course, then again, Harry lives with the dirt, appealing. But
yeah, I think he really wanted to get away from the Dursleys.
Who wouldn't?
Right.
seem like tough people to live with. Okay, so Duke, since it was maybe you who was speaking so highly of the Oldman performance, what else do you have for us on what he's bringing to this movie?
Oof. I don't know. Jacob mentioned quite a bit, actually. You know, the father son dynamic we're getting there. Just I don't know, just a little bit of that Oldman crazy too. You know, in that Sirius Black performance. I don't know, and then just I don't know. I like Gary Oldman as an actor, so I mean, I'm always going to be hooked watching him kind of chew the scenery a bit in this movie as Sirius Black. I think Sirius Black does get a bit more, you know, subdued because in this movie he is playing the villain as opposed to, of course, in his next few appearances, he's more of an ally. Well, he is an ally. Spoiler, I guess, everybody. Mostly for Raph. And, you know, yeah, so he's bringing it. He's bringing that acting. As I mentioned, I think he gives one of the best performances, not only in the film, but of the series in this movie specifically. And yeah, just, I got nothing else to say about Oldman besides, you know, it's like Harry Potter definitely has one of the best ensemble casts in terms of the level of talent and, you know, like acting chops. It's pretty much unmatched. Like maybe the MCU, but in terms of like actually like one series, Harry Potter, like just boom, unmatched. Lord of the Rings maybe, but Harry Potter.
I mean, let's not forget, Prisoner of Azkaban also introduced Emma Thompson as Trelawney. So
you get all these great actors, and they just agree to do like these. I don't want to say nothing roles, but you know, like their screen time. If you took a stopwatch, it's like less than 5 minutes sometimes.
Yes, but she's very memorable.
She does leave a good mark there.
Yeah.
And you got whoever plays Peter Pettigrew,
Timothy Spall.
He's also great and moves on. Like you just get all these great actors.
Yeah, I mean, him as Peter Pettigrew, just between the makeup and the mannerisms, is just so highly disturbing. Like,
yeah.
And
I was going to say. No, keep going.
Just as long as we're giving shout outs to some of the supporting characters. I mean, the woman who plays Marge at the very beginning, Aunt Marge, just like it's like a Dolores Umbridge test run almost. Like, God.
Yeah.
In some ways, she's like the worst villain in this. Almost.
I was going to jump ahead just a little bit. I know we're talking about Prisoner of Azkaban, but because, like I said before, I watched the first 4 of these movies. When Ralph Fiennes shows up at the end of 4 and is just doing like an insane like stage performance in the middle of this weird children's movie about wizards and stuff, I was like totally blown away. Because I haven't seen like a lot of the movies with him in it. But I just thought that like moment, that like one scene that he has where he's totally changing the vibe of the entire franchise in just like one scene. Like everyone is doing this like weird, like not weird, but like sort of very fitting performance for within this wizarding world, and he shows up and you're like, why do I feel like I'm at a stage play in London right now? Like,
right.
What is he doing? But like, why does it totally work?
Oh yeah, it works.
So yeah, just jumping ahead a little bit there. I know it's not a part of this movie, but I wanted to shout that out while we're talking about Harry Potter.
Yeah, that's what's so great about it. Having these established British actors. I mean, Alan Rickman, you know, it's they don't phone it in on these movies, which I've always appreciated, because it'd be so easy just to be like, I'm just going to go and get a paycheck and it's going to show on screen. Like they really do. They give a performance, and I have always appreciated that about, because, you know, sometimes we talked about, well, briefly mentioned the MCU, they have these big names, but sometimes it's like, okay, yeah, we know why they're here. They're getting a paycheck. They don't really, you know, it's a silly movie, silly character. And Harry Potter is about wizards. it can be seen as silly by a lot of people. But the actors that they get for these movies, I mean, the scene with the Shrieking Shack, with Gary Oldman and Timothy Spall and David Thewlis, and then of course Alan Rickman coming in after that.
Mhm.
It could be so silly if you think about it because they're yelling at this rat and great, but it works. They really they are dedicated to the scene, and you can see it. And that's I think that's why I appreciate them so much more as actors because it's like they understand the assignment and they know what's expected of them from the not just from Alfonso but the fans. And
Yeah.
it never feels like they're people say they're talking down or whatever, but they're not acting
Mhm.
down, so to speak, to the fan base. So I've always appreciated that about the people that they get for these movies. I mean, even like in the second movie, Kenneth Branagh, like he's
Yeah.
amazing, a great director, great actor, and he kills it as this like ridiculously vain idiot, professor.
Mhm.
And I don't know. I think that's part of the reason why I've appreciated the movie so much, almost as much as the books, is just because the people that they get for these movies, you wouldn't think that they'd get Gary Oldman for a wizard movie, but he's there. And like Duke said, he gives probably the best performance in the film and easily probably the entire series in just this movie. Because
Yeah.
I think Sirius is a little subdued a bit more in the fourth book. Fourth movie. He's barely in it. He's briefly in the fire, but the fifth movie, he's in it briefly as well before he's gone. And it's just, I think that this movie is the one where he really gets to show um, more depth to Sirius than the other two times we see him.
Yeah. Absolutely. It is great how committed everyone is to like all the actors, all the great big names are to like actually
Yeah.
wanting to make something cool here. Getting away from that a little bit, I wanted to circle back
Yeah.
to something that Jacob mentioned, and I know Jacob and Duke will want to talk about a little bit, and that's the time travel element of this movie and how it's utilized. Um, Duke, let's go to you first as our resident Back to the Future um, expert. How do you feel like time travel is used within this particular story?
Yeah, my relationship with the time travel in the Harry Potter franchise is kind of interesting because, well, I mean, it's used really good here in the sense that it's, usually in a time travel film, you go back in time and then you kind of create that second you, where in the movie, the second you is already there. So it's kind of like a closed loop. It's not like what I mean is, Harry Potter is always doing expecto patronum and always saving Sirius. And then we see him later in the movie learning that was him doing it, as opposed to nobody's there to save him. Then he goes back in time, and then he does
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
but then of course once you introduce time travel, then it's like, well, why aren't you using it in every movie? And lots of people have made jokes about how, a lot of the problems in the later movies would have been solved had you just used a time turner. I think in the books, they explain that they were all confiscated by the Ministry of Magic. It's been a long time since I've read them.
Yes.
But they do gloss over in the movie I think Hermione just mentions it, like, how do you think I've been taking all these classes? Which in
Yeah.
the book, I think it's way more expanded of her, taking all the classes, and the time turner is a bit bigger of a role. But I think the time turner is a cool thing. I mean, you can't go back that far or else you'd be spinning it like forever. But, turning in, then everything kind of, the way the Curon kind of frames it, maybe that's not the right word, but where, you see everything kind of shifting slowly or blending all around
Mhm.
as they rewind it, I think is a cool way to portray time travel on the big screen, as opposed to, like a device that usually sends someone back.
Yeah.
So yeah, in the confines of just this movie, I think it's really well done. The implications on the long term, franchise, especially in the movies where I don't think they ever mention it again. Like, we have time travel in the next 5 movies, they never bring it up. That's the issue with franchises. But yeah, as I said, in the confines of this movie, no issues. No flaws, in my opinion.
No
Jacob, what did you
notes.
make of it? No notes.
Yeah, well, the use of it again, yeah, I agree. The use of it in this movie is really, really well done. I really like the closed loop aspect of it, and I like the version of time travel where when you go back in time, you create a second version of yourself. And on the one hand, like obviously, time travel paradox affects the whole cause and effect deal. But then again, at the same time, if you go back in time, uh, then you were there the first time. It only makes sense if depending on how you show that. So I think the way they utilized it worked really well. And if you had not read the book going into this movie, there was a lot of hints that time travel was what was involved at the end. But technically, until you see them use the time turner to go back and change things, there is a little mystery. Like someone's throwing rocks at these kids in the hut. Like warn them. Who could it be?
Yeah.
I wonder why Alfonso Cuarón was doing 18 shots through the clock earlier. But one thing about this time travel that I really want to say is just outside of the DeLorean, I can't think of another time travel device in film that looks cooler than the time turner to me. And it's very simple. I mean, the time turner is very simple, but it just has this cool, whimsical, magical look to it, and I like the mechanic of having just to turn it back. It's a prop that I always really appreciated.
I hadn't read the books, and I think this was the first time that I'd actually watched this Harry Potter movie. So I was not aware of the time travel aspect or element of it. And once it pops up with I think they go back with 30, 20 minutes left in the movie. The way that it's all presented and lays out and works within the overall structure of the film, I was totally just yeah, this makes sense. This is where we're going now. That totally works. Ramona, I don't know if you're as big of a time travel person as Duke and Jacob are, but I don't know if you had thoughts on how it plays out here.
Time travel hurts my brain. When I think about it too much, I'm just like, how? So it just keeps happening. It's a loop. It just keeps how does that work? And I think about it too much, and then I start to freak out, and then I can't do it. So I just take it at face value for what it is. It's like the end of Endgame, Avengers Endgame, all that time travel. So I'm like, nope, I don't want it explained to me. Just show it to me, and I will believe you. I can't handle the science part of it. I don't get it. But I think it was really well done in the book and in the movie. I like how they did it. I feel like it could have been explained a little, like it was mentioned earlier, could have been explained a little bit more in the movie for it to make a little bit more sense for people who haven't read the book. But again, I don't think that it hurts the movie that they don't explain it that much. In the book, in the movie, they don't explain who the Marauders are when they talk about the map. But in the book, we know who the Marauders are. We know who made the map. We learn that, but we don't hear it in the movie, and no one really questions it. So I don't know. I think it was fine. I have no notes on the time travel. The way that the way that he directed it, I thought was a lot of fun. It kept me interested, even when you're repeating kind of what you've already seen. So it was good. I liked it.
Yeah, it seemed like a cool. Go for it.
Go ahead. I mean, I was just going to say, I just triggered something to say, it kind of reminds me in a way of Pulp Fiction, which might sound kind of weird, but showing the way it goes back and you've already seen, but from a different perspective. And instead of different characters, it's the same characters, but obviously, I mean, they're different. It gets a little complicated, but
yeah. We're getting into primer territory, which is a movie that we don't want to recommend to Ramona. because
So, but
Oh
Oh
God,
boy.
way
I've
too
never.
way too in the depths of
Is Pulp Fiction time travel? I've never seen
no
Pulp
time
Fiction.
travel. No.
No,
no,
okay. Is it just the
no,
way they storytelling?
Yeah, it's
yeah,
just
Okay,
like it's kind of the same thing here where it's like, okay, we're sort of like using time travel to just like show you a different perspective of the
gotcha.
same
Okay,
scene that you saw earlier. So like when you're first right, like I had never seen this movie all the way through. I don't think maybe at all. I hadn't read the books. I wasn't familiar with like anything. So when there's that first shot of the executioner, swinging the axe down
oh yeah,
for Buckbeat, I was kind of like, well, we don't see it. So like, through the visual language, he's Alfonso Cuarón is telling us that we are to believe that this character died. However, because we didn't see it, like we're kind of leaving the door open for something to
right.
happen. And then we see it later and you're like, okay, yeah, I get it
That
now.
makes sense. Yeah, yeah,
It's like, right. So I feel like the time travel here is like used as a playful way to just like recontextualize things that we saw earlier and like using visual tools from earlier in the movie to then like wrap it up at the end,
yeah.
which is kind of like the way that it should be used as opposed to just we're using it to go back and revisit Avengers 1. um
Right, right.
uh,
It has a purpose. Yeah.
yeah, it has like both narrative and like entertainment purpose.
Hmm.
There's like it's very much so using all of those tools available to a director. And when you have someone like Alfonso Cuarón, and not the Russo brothers, it's able to play out in a cool, interesting way that stimulates you as an audience
Yeah,
member.
yeah.
Okay, before I get too bogged down there, the one sort of just like last random note that I wanted to bring up before we get into recommendations or any other final thoughts that you guys want to bring up. I feel like this movie in particular uses music in a really cool way. So like I don't know if they're like actual like pop rock sort of like needle drops that aren't in the other ones, but the music does feel very different. Like it feels like there's music like outside of just like the standard John Williams score. And Jacob, I know that um, you also noticed something about the way that music is used in this movie. So I don't know if I'm speaking out of my ass on that, or if there's any sort of like truth to what I just tried
Well,
to say.
no, I had one. So the just obviously overall the John Williams theme for Harry Potter is he's got a long list, but it's still one of the best. And but the specific thing in this movie that I'm blown away by is the double toil and trouble song with the frog choir.
Yeah.
Um, which I mean, obviously the lyrics are Shakespeare, but I mean that's just a John Williams piece of music, and it is so Halloweeny and just absolutely awesome. I had to double check to make sure there was no there was no other inspiration out there, and it's just a John Williams creation. And I just thought that piece of music is really really cool, and it is it's outside of the score. It's an actual song, an in universe song too that they're singing, which is cool.
That's awesome. I did not know that at all. So thank you for that. Duke, Ramon, I don't know if you guys had anything specific on the music, the score, the theme, or anything that Jacob was talking about.
No.
I don't think so. I think, like Jacob, I really enjoy the chorus at the beginning. I think it sets the tone pretty well. I think a lot of people view at least the first three movies as kind of being I don't even want to say Christmassy movies, but because I don't even think Prisoner of Azkaban, does it have Christmas in, well, I guess it has the winter time they go to Hogsmeade and all that.
Mm-hmm.
But it also it's got that kind of holiday feel about it. You could watch it during Christmas, but also Halloween, just because of the spooky kind of atmosphere that is created with the Dementors and all that. So I
Yeah.
think the music fit really well. I think it was like, the first couple movies where the John Williams score, um, very iconic at this point. But I think the third movie and the score kind of starts to become its own thing away from the John Williams, basic Hedwig's theme. So I really enjoy the score in this movie too. I think it fits really well. And I think the score just continues to get better throughout the entire series, to be honest with you.
This one does feel more Halloweeny than the
Yeah.
first two.
Oh, for
I think there's
sure.
just something about Chris Columbus that feels Christmassy.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, I can see
and
that.
it might just be there's also like with all the awe and wonder of the first two movies that kind of those are like similar things that you feel around Christmas time, whereas around Halloween time you're not feeling those things as much. You're more so feeling like scared and anxious, which is kind of where Harry is mentally in
Yeah,
this movie. So it might
yeah.
be some of that as well. But um, yeah, uh, good stuff. Any anything else on Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban that we did not talk about that we need to talk about before we get into our recommendations for this week?
I personally just want to circle back real quick to another awesome movie item, which is the Marauders map. I mean, it's cool to read
Mm.
about it in the book, but the way they brought it to the screen, um, it's just another. I mean, Harry Potter has so many iconic items, and the Marauders map is just the one from this movie that I think obviously stands out. I mean, people love it. It's like Life 360 on paper. Uh, you know, it's great.
Yeah.
Great gadgets. Well, I guess they're not gadgets. Can't really call these gadgets and gizmos, but Harry
Magical
Potter is,
items.
There we
yeah,
go.
it's up there in terms of items.
Hmm.
Gadgets and gizmos would be more like James Bond.
Yeah.
More
Avengers.
iconic fictional British character, Harry Potter or James Bond?
Harry Potter.
Harry
Yeah.
Potter.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Also, I would say that I wonder if y'all, if, I don't want to get too far down the rabbit hole here, but I think that the Marauders and doing a spinoff on the high school days of James and Lily Potter and Snape and Lupin and Peter Pettigrew and Sirius Black is like the most obvious spinoff for the Harry Potter series, and I don't understand why they have tried Fantastic Beasts of all things instead, but that's just me.
I always say if Fantastic Beasts had been made during like the height of the streaming era instead, it would have been a really good like 10 episode series that actually focused on Newt Scamander like going around doing beasts instead of like shoehorning in the Grindelwald versus Dumbledore story. But
Right? Yeah.
I
Yeah.
digress. But
Yeah.
Duke,
I don't know. I
everything
like
you
that.
just said was gibberish to me.
I like that Harry Potter hasn't become like MCU-ified or Star Wars. Like I like that there's just the movies and their attempt at a spin-off series. I don't need
I think if
I
the
don't need a new
spinoff,
series every year.
yeah, but I think if the spinoff had been more successful,
There would have
they
been more
would have
years.
been, it would have been a Star Wars MCU type thing, but it is what it is.
I like just the 8 films.
Same. Yeah.
Everybody likes it. I don't know how this TV series will pan out. I do like the idea of them giving more time to actually develop subplots and stuff. But I don't know,
It's gonna be difficult. I
the
think.
whole 8 films are just
Yeah.
they came at the right time. They're
Yeah.
not I don't think the corporate oversight, as Raph mentioned, was a big issue too much, as it would be now.
Yeah.
But
And
so
there's a lot more
I just
controversy
like
now too, so it's going to be interesting to see how it does. But it's going to be really difficult. It's almost like taking the original Star Wars and being like, we're going to redo this as a series and recast and redo everything. And there's going to be the fans that are excited, and then there's going to be the fans that are like sacrilege. You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
I just I think the movies are great for what they are. You're never going to improve upon them, in my opinion, even with the books. So I guess we'll see. I don't know if I'll watch it, but
I do think if you're going to do a spinoff, focusing on the Marauders and Snake, I mean, there's such out of anything in the series that seems to have like the most fertile ground for
yeah.
characters we love, and we see them in a different context, and then also like seeing more of Harry's parents. I mean, you could do it really, really wrong, but I feel like there is some room there to do it in an interesting way. But
I also like the idea that you guys were throwing out before of, and I'm typically not big on, spin-offs and offshoots or, the Marvelization and Star Warsification of all media, but just like a goofy sitcom about some Hufflepuff kids, like while all this stuff is going on
Be
with
like,
Harry
what
Potter.
the fuck?
And like that stuff is happening in the background, but like each episode is just about like goofy kids being goofy, while like their world is like being attacked and like their way of life is, like threatened every day, and they're just like dealing with like, the girl who didn't write them back or something, just like goofiest stuff with the backdrop of like Harry Potter and everything happening.
Like
Serious,
Sirius dragging Ron across the to the tree, and the Hufflepuffs being up in the clock tower, like, what the fuck are they doing? You know?
Yeah, but it's just like
there goes Weasley again.
That's just like one minor like background moment in like the larger
They've got their own stuff to deal with.
Yeah.
That would be so amazing.
But it's all like very lighthearted stuff.
Oh yeah, it's not dark at all. It would be really fun.
I like your thinking, Raph, and just one more bonus spin-off that's insane. So imagine a professional Quidditch team blows their whole budget on the Seekers, and so it's really the only position that really matters. So we follow the league's worst. I forgot what the name. The ones that actually are trying to score the quaffle, like they're just like the three worst ones in the league because they're
chaser.
Like,
are they chasers? Yeah.
The beater, chasers, beaters. I think those are the other ones.
It should be like a mockumentary, like Hard Knocks style show, but about this one Quidditch team just trying to secure the best seed.
Imagine a
funny.
Quidditch series is like Ted Lasso, but instead of soccer, it's Quidditch.
I would watch it.
I always thought what would be really good is if like you do Quidditch, like the professional Quidditch in the series and the movies, but like it'd be so expensive. But like you actually like give 4 teams and like you air it as if it's like NHL, where they're playing each other. It'd be so expensive, but I think it could be a really cool. That could also be a cool series. Like they do a whole series of just like Quidditch match, and you're watching a Quidditch match.
Oh my god!
They do like a whole season of that.
All
I always thought that could be fun.
We have to stop this this brainstorming sesh before Zaz. I don't even know how to pronounce his name anymore. Zazzy.
Hire us, Zazzy. We'll work cheap. You have no money to pay us anyway.
Steals all of our ideas. I know that he is an avid listener of the show. Yeah. And Dave, if you are listening, fuck you. So that's all that we've got on Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. This has been an amazing conversation. Thank you all again for joining. Before we do recommendations, Ramona, what is your husband's favorite Harry Potter movie?
Okay, so I texted him and asked him this question, and he said that it's probably the Half-Blood Prince.
Oh,
yeah, he did say maybe Order of the Phoenix, but Half-Blood Prince.
Oh no, Order of the Phoenix is like the worst one.
Well, you know what? He didn't read the books. He's not a huge nerd like I am. I think that he's seen these movies many, many, many times. And, Half-Blood Prince is not bad. I can give him that. He could have said Chamber of Secrets.
It's the most fun one. Like, that's when you got, like, but I am the chosen one and the romance. So it's fun in that regard.
Yeah.
5 is pretty forgettable.
5 is...
Except for the one scene, which I won't say because I don't want to spoil Raph anymore.
5 is hard to watch for Umbridge alone. Other than that...
You don't like Umbridge?
Oh, what?
Like, you don't like that character in the context of that performance
No,
and whatnot.
I
What?
hate Umbridge.
I mean, you
I
hate
can't.
Umbridge, but like it's like
You
she's
know, when
like
I
the
was
most iconic character in that book.
reading that book to my daughter, she every time I bring up Umbridge and did the hem hem, she would like hiss at me. So yeah. But we could argue about this for another hour, so we should probably get on to recommendations.
Let's
Umbridge sucks.
okay, that's the final word on all the other Harry Potter movies. Unfortunately, we'll continue to I don't want to say argue. We'll continue to debate and discuss within the comment section once this episode is actually out. So before we get out of here, let's do our recommendations, like we've been trying to get to for the last 5 minutes or so. Just in case we have any new listeners out there, or to recap the rules for anyone who's joining and it's been a while. For every movie that we introduce into the canon, we all recommend 3 things each to check out. If you like said movie, for those recommendations, at least one of them has to be another movie. The other 2 things, however, can be any and everything else. It could be a book, a TV show, an album, a video game, a board game, a single episode of TV. We like to get super creative. The only thing that we ask is for it could be more movies, but any movies that we do recommend can't be movies that are already in the canon. So we can recommend all the other Harry Potter movies except for number 1. And we stick to 3. So sometimes Duke likes to give us like a 2-for-1 or whatever, and he's really recommending 4 things or 5 things. So we've had to implement a strict rule of 3 and only 3.
We'll see.
With all that being said, let's jump into these recommendations. For the order, we'll go Ramona, Jacob, Duke, Raph, and then we'll each give a brief explanation for why it is that we are recommending what it is that we're recommending, and then pass it off to the next person. So with all of that, Ramona, what's your first recommendation?
I'll be brief on these because I picked these today while I was still feverish, so I didn't have a lot of time to really write out my reasoning for them. But my first recommendation is probably going to seem out of left field, but The Shawshank Redemption, because
it's in the canon.
Oh shit balls!
Oh no.
Okay, I'm
Okay,
gonna go
good
to
place.
I'm gonna go to my fucking frickin' dinky do. I'm gonna go to my second one, and then while you guys are going,
I was
another
gonna say the one when I was like Shawshank. That just makes sense somehow. I don't know why, but it just
it does.
Right.
Wrongfully convicted guy escapes prison. Come on. Oh crap. Okay. My first recommendation is Wednesday, the TV show.
Oh.
Nice.
Yeah, Tim Burton and Jenna Ortega. You know, she's an outcast who's attending a school full of other outcasts with special abilities. It's very spooky. It's got a Halloween vibe to it, kind of like Prisoner of Azkaban, and a very interesting lead character. So I'm going to say Wednesday. I really enjoyed the series. So that'll be my first recommendation.
Awesome. I love it. Jacob, I think we're up to you now. Yeah. What's your first recommendation?
So I'm going to start out with a video game,
Nice.
a Harry Potter video game, but not anything recent. It is Quidditch World Cup, which maybe they made a remake of, but I know it on GameCube and or PlayStation, whatever you had at the time. And yeah, just an absolutely fun game. It's like a Quidditch version of FIFA. Quidditch is busted as a game, as a sport, but it doesn't really matter. It's just a ton of fun flying around the arenas, and there's lots of tricks, volleys that you can do. It was really pretty addictive back when I remember. And I actually broke it out not too long ago, and it held up in my mind. So
nice. That sounds super fun. They should make like a remastered version of that, because I would totally play that. That sounds great.
They might have, but I'm not positive.
I gotta double check. and we'll hop online, build a Quidditch dynasty together. Amazing. All right, Duke, what is your first recommendation?
I will go with Looper, a time travel movie that has Bruce Willis and Joseph Gordon-Levitt. I wanted a time travel movie because, of course, the time travel and Prisoner, but I wanted to pick a movie that kind of used it in the same way. As I mentioned earlier, it's not like they then go back and save Sirius. Harry was always there. And Looper was the closest I could think of, in the sense that he's going, well, I don't want to spoil the movie, but Bruce Willis's character goes back in time. He's trying to prevent this Rainmaker from rising. And it does kind of diverge at the end. It's not as closed, storytelling-wise, as Prisoner of Azkaban, but it's a movie I actually watched, considered it one of my favorite movies ever, and I haven't seen it probably in almost a decade, so I need to rewatch it. Everybody else should watch it for the first time if they haven't already. Emily Blunt's in it too. Great. It's like a three-hander. So good.
Awesome. I love that. I was hoping we would get at least one time travel recommendation. I've not seen that movie. It's been on my watch list for the longest time. And like most movies that are on my watch list that get
never gets watched.
It never gets watched because who has all that time? But it will bump up my watch list now that it has been mentioned here. For my first recommendation, I think I'm going to go with one that might seem kind of silly. So maybe I'll say it first and then I'll go through how I got there. So I'm going to recommend The Last Dance, the 10-part documentary series about Michael Jordan's 1990s Chicago Bulls. The way that I got here was obviously the said Prisoner of Azkaban in question in this movie is one Sirius Black. The song Sirius by the Alan Parsons Project is what was used to introduce the starting lineup for every Chicago Bulls home game. That's how I got to The Last Dance.
Oh boy.
There is also that hilarious meme that floats around every couple of months about how this story takes place between 1991 to like 1997 or 8, and at no point does anyone say, "Hey, what's going on with the Chicago Bulls is pretty crazy." Which is just like one of the silliest memes out there, but very funny. So those are the two ways that The Last Dance is connected to The Prisoner of Azkaban. But really, you should just like go listen to Sirius by the Alan Parsons Project because that song rips.
Nice.
Cool. Ramona, we're back to you.
Ah, crap. Okay. All right. I hope this isn't in the canon, so I'll just die. But I am gonna, how we talked earlier about how Prisoner of Azkaban is kind of like a Halloweeny movie, but also played during the holidays because it's got the Christmassy vibe as well. So I'm gonna go with another movie that's similar in those vibes, and that is The Nightmare Before Christmas.
Nice. It's not. I don't think it's in the canon.
It's not. I just had to look, and I'm hoping I didn't miss it. But it is a Christmas movie with a Halloween vibe. And that's why I'm picking that movie.
I love it.
That's the only reason I got, but it works.
No, it's great. There aren't many other movies that fall into that category. So right. It's a perfect double feature.
Yes.
Amazing. Jacob, back to you.
Okay, since Ramona did not do What If, I'm going to do it myself. Was that your third one?
What is it?
What If?
I love that movie.
Yeah, I looked in preparation for this. I looked it up and I saw your review on Letterboxd that you gave it a high mark. So
I did.
People have been stealing my recommendations on here, and I was like, well, surely Ramona's going to mention this rom com featuring Daniel Radcliffe.
Oh, dang it. That's a good one.
So, but yeah, glad to represent it. So yeah, I think it's a really underrated rom com. Um, it's got Daniel Radcliffe opposite. Is it Zoe Kazan?
Zoe Kazan, yeah, or
So,
Kazan.
so they just have a really good chemistry. Daniel Radcliffe is just so likable and just kind of, um, not necessarily a typical rom com lead. It just works so great, and it's also got Adam Driver as
Yeah.
as friend, and he has one of the best lines.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
I just had sex about to eat nachos,
Yeah.
and so it's just and there's just some really fun scenes, and it's a really sweet, funny rom com that works really well. It's really good chemistry. So that's my second pick.
Oh, so good.
Nice. I've not seen it, but might
It's pretty
have to
good.
add it to the watch list.
So good. It's as close to When Harry Met Sally as one can get anymore.
Okay, I'm in.
Yeah. Yeah.
There we go. That's all I needed to hear.
Yeah. And you have to
Cool.
like it, so
Okay. Otherwise, I'm
just lie to me, otherwise I don't care.
all right.
I don't want to hear you didn't like it.
That's fair. I'm
Okay.
sure I'll like it. I trust you guys. Duke, what's your
All right.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
I was gonna go with a video game, but since Jacob mentioned one, I'll shift, and I'm gonna mention something even more obscure, and that is let me just do a quick Google. I'll get the proper name. Harry Potter Seen It.
The game.
Yeah, the game. Technically a
Okay.
video game because it's a DVD you put in, but it's not a video game. If anybody doesn't know what Harry Potter Seen It is, or the overarching Seen It brand, it was a game. You have a board, and you would roll, and then kind of like the game was set up on the screen. So there was cards, but then they would also play clips from movies, and then they would say, "Oh, what was the next line?" or who are they talking to off screen, blah blah blah, or they blur a character. Very fun. They did a bunch. Disney, Seinfeld. I'm looking online right now. Amazon still has it. Super expensive. But it's like the cost of Hogwarts Legacy, so pick which one you want to play. But it's a lot of fun, especially if you've seen all the movies countless times. And I guess you need a DVD player, so I guess maybe not a lot of people have those anymore, which is scary to think how old we're getting. But Harry Potter Seen It. A lot of fun. Had a lot of fun with it back in the day.
Nice.
Nice. I like it. Okay, cool. I'm going to recommend another movie. Not as loose in its connection to Prisoner of Azkaban as my first one was. But I think that this movie in many ways sort of like inspired the look and feel of Prisoner of Azkaban, in that I feel like this movie, although it is really inventive in the ways that it uses CGI and VFX and stuff, it also kind of has like this weird sort of like silent movie vibe to it in a lot of ways. And if you've ever seen the Francis Ford Coppola film, his version of Dracula, Bram Stoker's Dracula from the 90s, that movie also has a lot of like influence from the silent movie era in the way that it's shot and presented and stuff. And I know that the two movies have like very different vibes in the way that they're using technology and stuff to tell a visual story, but I couldn't stop thinking that movie had a lot of influence in the look and feel of how this movie eventually came out. And it's an awesome movie that everyone should watch. So Francis Ford Coppola's Bram Stoker's Dracula is my second recommendation.
Good pick. I'm surprised that's not in the canon yet.
Yeah, it may have come out in a loaded year,
Yeah,
I would assume.
I really like that movie. It's very underrated, I think.
Yeah, I dig it.
So I have a third one, and I'm going to go with a time travel movie, um,
Nice.
and a romance. And I don't know if you guys have seen it, but About Time.
Hell yeah.
Oh, so good.
Oh, so good. Love that. Rachel McAdams.
Yeah, Rachel
Ginger
McAdams,
ginger lead. Oh, you're
Ginger
hitting it.
lead.
You're hitting like one of my favorite time
And you
travel
know,
movies.
this I could say that this is connected to Harry Potter because Bill Nighy plays the father who is also in one of the Harry Potter movies as the new Minister of Magic. Very
Domhnall Gleeson plays
Domhnall
Ron
Gleeson. Oh
Weasley's little
yeah, Bill
brother.
Weasley.
Hello.
Yes. So there you go. That's exactly why I picked this
Of
movie
course.
at the last second.
Yeah.
But you know, if you've seen it, you know that Tim Lake turns 21 and he finds out that the men in his family can time travel. He cannot change history, but he can change his life. And he goes back in
Aw.
time quite often to fix things and win the heart of Mary, who is Rachel McAdams, who is very charming in this movie. So it will make you ugly cry. It made me ugly cry. I can only watch it when I feel like purging a lot of emotion, but it's a great movie. I think it's kind of overlooked in terms of Richard Curtis's movies, but I love it.
So good.
I love it. I don't know why I
Yeah.
said hell yeah, because I've never seen it, but
Oh my god, you have to watch this movie.
It's so good.
it's always available on Delta flights, and I'm always like, I should watch this,
You
one of these
should.
days. But I don't know if that's the place to watch it.
It's really
if I'm just
marketed as a romance, but it really is a father-son movie. So
I mean, it's a
really,
romance too.
it is a
either way,
romance, but it is a father-son
I should
movie.
watch that right now. Oh my god.
either way, I'm probably gonna cry.
You will
And you
cry.
know what?
Definitely.
I am fine crying on a crowded airplane.
Delta Flight.
Yeah.
Delta Flight.
Yeah, I don't care. LaGuardia to Austin, I'll
Oh
cry.
man, go for
I'll
it.
do it. Yeah.
They deserve it.
The other passengers would be so lucky to see me cry.
You're right.
Jesus.
This man can show emotion.
Jacob, what's your final recommendation?
So here's the thing, Raph. I thought that this pick would be a big stretch, but after hearing your kind of hot take on the Last Dance, I think this is kind of more of a clear connection. So we're talking about the Marauders and the it's really cool to see this group of 4 wizards that are all able to. I guess their connection is they all turn into animals, and so you really have to
Mhm.
you really have to marvel at these fantastic 4 wizards.
Oh boy, here we go again.
So that's why I'm recommending the Shaggy Dog with Tim Allen.
That's so good.
Jacob, that was your best setup yet. The bait and switch, all of it. That was remarkable.
Love it.
Yeah, just so well played. Wow.
Which version of the Shaggy Dog?
The Tim
Josh
Allen
Trank
version.
version.
Tim Allen.
Ah.
Oh man,
Great movie.
I love that. That's awesome. I won't add it to my watch list though. But
Oh.
all right, Duke, how do you top
We're
that?
not. He's not explaining why.
You
Well,
did.
because
I mean, he
turned
did
it-
kind of.
Good.
he turned into a dog, dude.
Oh, apologies. I get you now. I get you. Okay.
Oh, that was awesome.
I thought you were talking about 4 other fantastic people with certain powers.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know what would give you that idea.
Okay. Anyway, my final recommendation is going to be the television series Strike, or CB Strike. It is based on Robert Galbraith's Corman Strike novels, which are, of course, a pseudonym for J.K. Rowling. Really good books. I've only read the first few, but really great TV series. It's kind of her detective novels. You get a guy, and then he kind of has this temp assistant, and together they solve cases in and around London. Very British because it's a British made
Nice.
series, and then I think HBO picked it up for American. Just yeah, really kind of if you like the Sherlock series with Benedict Cumberbatch or just British people in general. Yeah, it's worth a watch. Strike
Hell
or
yeah.
CD Strike, as I
Yeah.
think
I
it
did read
is.
the first book, but that was it.
They're so long. Like
They
that's
are.
like just as I'm done with long movies, if a book's over like 300 pages, oh, it's a struggle. But no, the series. So that's why the series just adapts in like 1 or 2 episodes. Boom.
Yeah.
I like it. For fans of British people, which that's everyone. That's all of us. Who doesn't love the Brits?
Yeah.
Okay, for my final recommendation, this we didn't really talk about it much, but this movie and story does feature a little subplot about werewolves. So I was thinking, what are some of the best pieces of media, some of the best text out there about werewolves? And the one that I landed on was, stick with me, guys. Season 2, episode 2 of 30 Rock. Jack gets in the game,
Oh,
and you know it, Ramona.
is that Werewolf Bat Mitzvah?
It is.
Oh yes. That song is on my Halloween playlist.
It's amazing. I
It
didn't
is
realize that it's
good.
a full song.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And it starts weird and it just gets weirder. Watching my parents' face as they listened to it last Halloween was worth it. So that
Yeah.
is a brilliant episode.
Werewolf bar mitzvah.
Yes.
Boys become men. Men become wolves.
wolves. Yeah.
Yeah.
So good. That's a great pick.
Thank you.
Totally fits.
Some of my weirdest recommendations for this movie. Really had to stretch myself here. Before we get out of here and say final goodbyes, let's run through our recommendations one last time for all of our lovely listeners. So, Ramona, you can kick us off.
Man. So my first recommendation was the television show on Netflix, Wednesday. My second was The Nightmare Before Christmas. And my third was the 2013 romantic / father-son movie, which sounded really bad as I said it. So cut that out. About Time. I don't think you guys understand that I'm barely surviving on my meds right now.
I think everyone understood what you meant. I don't
Okay,
think.
good.
Yeah, I don't think anyone thinks that you're recommending that kind of movie.
I hope not.
Oh.
You never know.
All right, Jacob, what are your three?
My three. So for my first recommendation was the Harry Potter Quidditch World Cup video game, specifically the one that came out in 2003. If there are any alternate versions, I don't know. The second recommendation was What If, starring Daniel Radcliffe in the lead role. And third was The Shaggy Dog. So,
And my picks were the time travel movie Looper from 2012, Harry Potter Seen It, the DVD game, and Strike or CB Strike, based on the Corman Strike novels.
Amazing. I've got The Last Dance, the 10-part documentary series about the 1990 Chicago Bulls. Of course, I've got Francis Ford Coppola's Bram Stoker's Dracula, of course. And I've got season 2, episode 2 of 30 Rock, Jack Gets in the Game, featuring the amazing, incredible song Werewolf Bar Mitzvah. Duke, Ramona, Jacob, thank you guys for joining. This has been an absolute blast. Before we get out of here, anything coming up on the website that people should be looking out for?
Oh, okay, I guess this is where I usually chime in.
Yeah, come on.
Stuff coming up. Not sure, but we did, or I guess, Kane just finished his 10 most enjoyable movies set in New York. So you guys could go and read that. Coming up, yeah, we got a Tom Cruise collab ranking of all of his movies where he didn't make a cameo. So it's all of his movies except Austin Powers 3.
Yeah.
That'll be coming out probably before the end of August 2024. So if you're listening after that, it's probably on the site. Coming up, nothing I can think off the top of my head, but as always, as we get into closer to October, we'll be having a lot of horror Halloween content, which again, kind of, as Ramona says, Harry Potter, it's kind of a Halloween, but also a Christmas movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like Nightmare on Elm, or no, not Nightmare on Elm, like Nightmare Before Christmas. So.
Not Nightmare Before
Nightmare on
Elm Street. No,
that's a different vibe entirely.
Yeah.
But no, otherwise, yeah, I don't think anything major's coming up except, every Thursday, I think till the end of the year now, we got a new Canon article.
Nice.
Yeah.
We got one from Raph coming up before the end of August. We got one from Bob that will have just come out a couple weeks before this episode drops. And then we have one from Sailor that I think, unless he forgets to do it, will have a werewolf as its main character. Look at this. Look at this connection we're pulling here to Harry Potter. So there you go. Always something to look forward to. Check screenagewasteland.com every morning while you have your coffee or breakfast.
It's the best way to start the day. That's
Exactly.
what I always say.
Yeah.
And I should have a new pole position article out start of next week, just looking at the animated race. So you can keep an eye out for that.
Nice.
There you go.
Ramona's got, oh my God, why am I blanking on the name of your series?
Rom-Com Rewind every Tuesday.
There we go. That's the one.
Well, 2 p.m. my time, 3 p.m. your guys' time. Doesn't matter.
Sight time. Also, that reminded me, every Monday now we have To Be Treasures, I think we call them, where Sailor and sometimes a guest writer will be pitching 5 movies that are on the free streaming service Tubi. So if you're always looking for movies that aren't, essential, give that a read. Tubi, we're trying to get you to sponsor us.
Really
I don't think we're supposed to make it that blatant.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are great. There's a lot of cool stuff happening over on Tubi. I know Sailor does his Monsoon Visions, the watch along parties, mostly with Tubi movies, if not exclusively Tubi. So definitely check those out. We've got that on Monday. You've got Rom-Com Rewind every Tuesday. Every Wednesday, you've got a new episode of the Canon coming out. Every Thursday, you've got new articles for Canon movies coming out. Every Friday, you've got Fear Flashback with Bob. So there's a ton of great stuff every day of the week worth checking out. Tons of great lists, articles. You've got Jacob's Pole Position. You've got my monthly movies to stream. So much great stuff to check out on the Screen Age Wasteland website. So definitely come hang out with all of us over there. Like we were saying before, we'll be in the comment section. You can chat with us, give us your takes, give us your thoughts on whatever it is that we're talking about. Give us your thoughts on Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. We will be back next week with another essential movie. We're sort of going back in time a little bit more. The movie's going to be a little bit more old school than Harry Potter, we'll say. We're going to be talking Buster Keaton's The General. So that should be very fun, different vibe from Harry Potter, but still an essential movie, still a great movie. Should be another amazing discussion. So I hope to see you there. And as always, Screenagers, we will see you in the wasteland.